So Donald Trump is telling his supporters that this is what happened. Okay? So he's telling them something that would justify what they're doing. And then when they do that, what does Donald Trump do?
Okay, now this brings up a whole other point. You may not agree with this, but I love his perspective. He basically had said Donald Trump is not anything anyone thinks he is. He's not the boogeyman the left thinks he is. And he's not this strong, he loves me hero the right thinks he is. Dave Smith basically said he thinks Donald Trump's the first genuine politician we've ever had who's just himself. And he doesn't really give a shit about any of these people. He threw them under the bus after this happened. So what he was getting to was that, what did Donald Trump do? He basically threw him under the bus. That isn't really where I was going with it. I just thought that was interesting. But here's where it's going to get saucy. And I have no idea if you're going to agree with me. Probably not, because you and I don't agree on a lot of things, which is good. We agree on big things, but and I think we model how to disagree agreeably, but
most of the time.
Everybody, listen, we both fuck up sometimes.
We all have our moments.
Yesterday, if you had asked me, do I think Donald Trump incited what happened, I would have said, no, they went on their own. But today, after listening to this and thinking it through, why did they believe the election was stolen? There could be many reasons, but I think we'd be hard pressed to deny that a big reason wasn't because Trump kept telling them it was, and that he had the Kraken and he was going to release the Kraken, and he had all this evidence that they didn't have, and if they would just be patient. Yet today or yesterday, he concedes as a big betrayal of all these people that believed him that he had this evidence and it was going to come out.
Well, part of that came from some of his lawyers, not necessarily him.
I put ultimate responsibility on the one who opens their mouth.
But I'd also point out that I actually read the transcript of what he said at that Capitol rally, and at no point in what he said.
I'm not talking about that rally.
Well, no point in that did he to say go down and storm the Capitol.
No. I'm not talking about that rally at all. I'm talking about his rhetoric from the day after the election. These people believed that so firmly because he kept telling them it was true.
There was also a lot of independent evidence to that out there.
Well,
whether you believe it or not, it was there. I saw it myself.
I believe the people coming out with this, some of it might have been not air quotes evidence, and some of it was proven to be air quotes evidence, is because they were riled up by Trump kept saying this. Every election, there's always a core group of people who believe it was rigged. Every election. There's still Hillary people who believe it was rigged. But Hillary wasn't going around like, in the beginning she had said, yeah, but then she conceded and didn't really take it much further. But when you've got the most powerful man in the country saying every single day to his followers, who are already very, very loyal and excitable, that the election was stolen, he had to have known that they would be eventually stirred into action. It's inevitable. So while yesterday I would have said definitely no, he didn't. Today, I do think he incited this.
But at the end of the day, did he actually break the window, break down the door?
Oh, that's a different issue. We're talking about incitement. Whether or not incitement should be an actual crime or whatever is a whole other thing.
It shouldn't be, and it should not be either in a criminal or a political sense. They're trying to impeach him for claiming he incited this stuff when they have absolutely no evidence he did whatsoever. The ultimate goal of it is people are responsible for their own actions, and they're the ones who committed the crimes, not him.
Well, I don't disagree there, but saying there shouldn't be anything, such thing as incitement, is different than saying there's no evidence for incitement. If you grant, like we did for the people's argument, something is true for sake of argument.
You give a comment.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. If there is such a thing as incitement, he did incite. Now, whether or not there should be such a thing, that's a different question. But I can't find any way, and whether it should be impeached or whatever for that, that's, again, a whole other thing. But to me now, it's pretty clear he incited it. Now, should incitement be a thing? I was also considering that. I have to think about that more. I tend to think no, that people need to be responsible for their own actions, and that no matter what you say, you're not forcing them. You're not forcing them to go do something.
That's one of the fundamental core tenets of libertarianism. You are responsible for everything you say and you do. I can't sit here and point a gun at your head like this and say you will do this. That doesn't work. That's nobody is coerced to doing things like that in a normal situation. And I say normal because yes, it can happen sometimes, but at the same time, for the most part, people have the ability, especially in this country, to make that choice. Just because you want to knock somebody on their butt doesn't mean you're going to go do it.
But aren't people responsible for the information that they spread?
Yes, in a way they are.
And
but people are also responsible for verifying that information is accurate. It's two parts of it. I can sit here and tell you the sky is green out there. Okay. And it may be total bullshit, or it may be an aurora borealis going on. But unless you verify it, how do you know if I'm telling the truth or not?
But if you tell me something that requires certain specialized knowledge to know, and there's an urgency to act, and you're a trustworthy person, I don't have an answer. I'm throwing shit out. And I think the president, arguably, is in a position to know more things than any citizen could possibly verify.
By definition, he is.
And there is a certain urgency because there's a deadline coming up.
Right.
This isn't just Joe Citizen. So I don't know. I don't have the answer to this. I don't have the answer whether incitement should be a thing.
Excuse me.
I tend to think that it should be up to a point. And I think it's very situation specific. For instance, hypothetical crowd. A guy tells a hypothetical crowd that this lady over here just got raped by this guy, and this guy's about to get on a plane and flee the country. Yeah. And then the crowd detains him and harms him in detaining him. If that person who said that knew it wasn't true, it was just words, but doesn't he bear some responsibility?
In a case like that, yes.
Because there were those extra steps I put in. There right. was, a time thing that action had to be taken then.
Right.
I don't know. I'm really just throwing things out there.
That's also an accusation of a violation of someone's person, which is of a violent nature, which is a far different cry from just saying something.
Well, it is just saying something, though. He didn't. Nobody saw it happen.
Well, supposedly, but yeah.
Well, that isn't part of the story, so.
True. True.
So I don't really know the answer on incitement. I have to think about it some more. But I don't think it's so clear-cut to say, well, he didn't force their hand to do that. He was in a certain position of power and trust for them to think he had information that they didn't have, and that the country was about to be turned over illegitimately. So there was the urgency, and there was the unequal knowledge relationship.
But he also never said, go there, storm the castle, take back your country. I have the knowledge of why this needs to be done. Trust me.
You don't. I don't think you have to say that.
That would be direct incitement. That would be no doubt about it. That's not what he said.
No, and no, it isn't. But I do think. What do? You tell a bunch of patriotic people this is going on. What do you do? I do think there are consequences from your actions you can't possibly expect.
Yeah.
And then there are ones that you should.
Right.
And to me, I think he is lucky that all that happened is crazy horned man went in there and took a selfie. Because I think it would have been very possible for it to be really bad, to like something really, really bad to have happened. And he's lucky it didn't. Now, does this alleged incitement justify social media then banning him when they did? No, because when they banned him, he was trying to undo all his incitement. He was telling them to go home, and that's when they banned him. That's ridiculous.
That, and I want to see if I can find another one here which kind of points this out. This was something that,
and then we'll talk. There's some good comments here.
This was something that one of our LPCO board members said. And this is John Pickerel, who is an outstanding libertarian, a very level-headed and rational guy, good friend too. He put up a quote. He said, "When you tear out a man's tongue, you are not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say."
Right.
That's the danger of censorship right there. As Dan Bongino said the other day, the cure for bad speech
is more speech.
Is more speech.
Right.
You know, and that's the case. You don't eliminate the bad words. I don't mean by cussing. I mean the false statements, right, and the incorrect views and all those details, or whatever they are, however you want to describe them, by censoring the opposition. You do it by having a rational, open, calm discussion about the points of them and go from there. And whether you agree with Facebook and Twitter and God knows who else doing all this deplatforming and censoring crap or not, the reality of it is intellectual honesty and simple moral ethics indicate have the conversation and have it with an open mind to think things through, come up with a better answer.
Well, arguably, Facebook and Twitter and all of them, so it gets funny, by silencing him, then give credibility that there's some conspiracy and they might be guilty of incitement.
Exactly.
That's what's really interesting. But I have a bunch of libertarians saying, well, he violated the terms of service. Where? And that one thing, that speech that he got censored for did not violate the terms of service. He literally was telling the people in the Capitol to go home. Mm-hmm. How is that violating the terms of service? I don't know where libertarians are coming for on this.
Because the interpretation of the violation of the terms of service is purely within the constraints of the platform itself. Actually, let me rephrase that. Within the constraints of the publisher themselves. Let's get the term right. And as a result, it is subjective on a case-by-case basis or whatever. I've seen this firsthand where I've seen people on Facebook who will say some of the most obscene and ridiculous things and nothing happens. But the minute that I say something which someone may get their knickers in a twist over, I wind up in Facebook jail. Even though what I said was completely accurate. And it wasn't really a matter of opinion, it was a statement of fact.
I would love some libertarian.
There's no appeal.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, there is none. But I would love for some libertarian to explain how that video of him telling people to go home violated the terms of service. It didn't. So even with the whole private property and all that crap that they kept saying, and I say all that crap because, and the people are going to be like, she said private property was crap. No, I don't think I'm having a very not nice feeling towards corporations. This isn't a private person's property.
You ever seen a corporation in a church praying?
No.
That's why they're not a person. Thank you.
Charles Manson didn't kill anyone. Right.
Yeah.
He only incited, right? So in that sense, he should be a free man. It's a fine line. And I do. Yeah. Right. I mean, Charles Manson is usually the classic case of incitement. That was his defense.
Yeah.
That he didn't kill anyone. But I would be hard pressed to say he doesn't have responsibility. So I think is a really good example.
Well, it isn't, because Manson was directly interacting with his followers who did that right then and there in his compound house, whatever the hell he lived at. Trump doesn't have that direct interaction with these people in the White House. There's a separation layer there, which also has to be factored into the equation. It's the same reason why political leaders aren't always necessarily brought up on genocide or war crimes.
They should be.
Actions of their underlings. They're usually executed before that happens, either by themselves or by somebody else.
I don't think bringing that up was a good defense, because I think they should be. But I mean, that was a good, though, question on the whole incitement thing.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business, not because they want to